Have you ever hired a sales rep who, absolutely crushed their interview, but then, like, 3 months later, your pipeline is just completely dry?
Oh, it's the absolute worst.
Right. And you are basically looking at an empty territory all over again. It's a uniquely frustrating experience.
Yeah, especially if you're a sales leader or an executive.
Exactly, because you think you found the perfect fit. You invest all that onboarding time, you allocate the accounts, and then nothing, just empty promises and missed quotas.
And the fallout from that specific scenario is incredibly costly. I mean, we aren't just talking about the sunk cost of a base salary here
No, not.
or, a recruiter fee.
Mhm.
We were talking about lost market momentum, burned leads, and honestly, the opportunity cost of a territory just sitting stagnant while your competitors are actively calling on those exact same prospects.
Yeah, they're just swooping right in. And that commercial reality is really the mission for today's deep dive.
It's a big one.
It is. We are unpacking this highly tactical article from Wynn Nathan Davis at the Sales Experts Ltd. And this piece, it really breaks down the mechanics of what actually happens when companies engage recruitment agencies to find salespeople.
Which is a process a lot of companies get wrong.
So wrong. We are looking way beyond the standard safety nets that executives usually rely on.
Yeah.
The goal here is to discover the structured, proactive strategies that actually drive long-term sales success. Because finding that top 1% of sales talent, it requires dismantling a lot of traditional hiring assumptions.
It really does. I mean, hiring a salesperson is fundamentally a major commercial decision.
Right.
It dictates your revenue trajectory, the strength of your customer relationships, and, your ability to open new markets.
Yep.
Yet despite those massive high stakes, a lot of executives focus on the wrong metrics entirely when they're evaluating a recruitment partner. They look for, contractual safety nets instead of deep structural alignment with their sales organization.
Okay, let's unpack this safety net concept because the article points out something super interesting.
Yeah.
The single most common question companies ask when they engage a recruitment partner is surprisingly defensive. They always ask, what guarantee do you offer?
Right, the classic guarantee question.
Exactly. And the standard industry answer is typically this replacement guarantee spanning somewhere between 3 to 6 months, depending on how senior the role is.
And on paper, I mean, a 3 to 6 month replacement guarantee sounds like a really prudent business safeguard.
It sounds great.
Right. It covers the downside if a candidate leaves due to voluntary resignation or termination for cause or, simply a failure to meet the expectations of the role.
Yeah, if they just don't work out.
Exactly. If the hire fails within that window, the agency conducts a completely new replacement search to mitigate the financial impact.
But a replacement guarantee operates a lot like car insurance.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like, you definitely want the policy in your glove box, but having insurance doesn't mean you actually want to get into a crash.
Nobody wants the
That's
crash.
exactly. If I'm a VP of sales and my new enterprise rep fails in month 4, the recruiter might run a new search for free, but I am still bleeding revenue.
Oh, massively.
If that rep had, say, $1 million quota, my territory has been underperforming for 4 months. Plus the 3 months it takes to find candidate number 2.
Yeah.
Plus their ramp-up time.
It's brutal.
I mean, I'm looking at 3/4 of a year with a massive hole in my pipeline. So the guarantee covers the search fee, sure, but it does absolutely nothing to refund my lost time.
What's fascinating here is that executives routinely overlook that hidden burn rate.
Yes, they just see the free replacement.
Exactly. A guarantee only provides a baseline level of contractual reassurance. It does not in any way eliminate the risk of the hire failing. The stakes in commercial sales are simply too high to rely purely on the promise of a do-over.
Yeah, you can't just hit reset.
You really can't. The true cost includes the internal resources drained by management trying to coach a struggling rep, the potential damage to your brand credibility, like if they mishandled a major key account.
Oh, that's the worst.
And of course, the permanent loss of deals that went to competitors during that whole gap.
So if the guarantee is just the airbag in that car insurance analogy, we really need to talk about what actually keeps the car on the road.
Right. The preventative measures.
Exactly. The source material argues that preventing the crash comes down to the rigor of the recruitment process itself. But, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
We're talking about evaluating salespeople. These are professional persuaders.
They literally do it for a living.
Right. Their entire career is built on reading a room, identifying what the buyer, or in this case, the hiring manager, wants to hear, and then delivering that message with absolute conviction. So if a candidate can sell me on hiring them, isn't that, proof of concept that they can sell my product?
Well, it is proof of a very specific, very limited concept. It proves that they can run a short cycle, highly motivated, single stakeholder pitch where they themselves are the product.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because selling yourself in a 45-minute interview is fundamentally different from navigating, say, a complex 6-month procurement process with a deeply skeptical buying committee.
Oh, night and day.
Right. A candidate might interview with incredible charisma, deliver just a flawless elevator pitch, and completely control the room. But confidence in an interview setting does not seamlessly translate to commercial sales performance.
Yeah, charisma doesn't build a pipeline from scratch.
Exactly.
So how do you mathematically assess someone who is actively trying to run a sales cycle on you? Like, what does the methodology look like when specialist recruiters, like the ones the sales experts, evaluate these top-tier candidates?
Well, the shift is really moving away from conversational interviews and toward structured commercial performance evaluations.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Specialist sales recruiters aren't just asking candidates to recount their biggest wins in vague terms. They are probing for verifiable, genuine selling behaviors.
Like getting into the weeds.
Exactly. For instance, they assess a candidate's specific methodology for generating a pipeline. They don't want to hear that a candidate just hustled.
Anyone can say they hustled.
Right. They want to see the mathematical breakdown of their territory plan, their outreach cadences, and their conversion metrics from cold lead to qualified meeting.
I really want to dig into this concept of deal ownership because honestly, this is where so many hiring managers get burned.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, a resume might claim the candidate closed a $5 million deal. But in complex sales, that deal might have involved a pre-sales engineer, an overlay specialist, a VP dropping in to negotiate terms, and like a massive existing brand reputation.
Uncovering the reality of that deal ownership is central to a commercial evaluation. A rigorous assessment separates the drivers from the passengers.
I love that, drivers versus passengers.
Yeah, because specialist recruiters force the candidate to reconstruct the deal forensically. They will ask the candidate to map out the exact internal and external stakeholders involved.
Right, like who actually did what.
Exactly. Who specifically identified the initial pain point? What were the specific technical objections raised by the CTO? And, how did the candidate navigate them independently?
If they even did navigate them.
Right. Because if a candidate was just a passenger on a multi-million-dollar deal where, say, a solution architect did all the heavy lifting, that is going to unravel very quickly under forensic questioning.
So you are basically looking for the underlying mechanics. You aren't just asking, hey, can you sell? You are demanding, prove to me the exact operational sequence you used to move this specific prospect from status quo to a signed contract.
Precisely. And by engaging in that level of rigorous market mapping and defining the success profile meticulously before the search even begins, you strip away that polished facade.
You look past the charisma.
You're evaluating closing capability based on demonstrated historical mechanics, not interview charm. And when you apply that level of structural assessment, suddenly the need for a fallback replacement guarantee becomes a really secondary concern.
Okay, but let's assume the candidate passes that forensic assessment. They have the mechanics down. They were the undisputed driver of their deals.
All right.
We still see scenarios where a rep who was just an absolute top performer, like someone consistently hitting President's Club at their previous company, gets hired into a new organization and completely flatlines.
Oh, I have this all the time.
Right. So if the underlying mechanics are solid, why does a proven rainmaker suddenly struggle like that?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, sales success never happens in a vacuum. It is heavily dependent on the external variables surrounding that individual rep.
Variables like what?
The source material highlights several critical factors. You've got macroeconomic market conditions, the strength of internal support and resources, product competitiveness, and of course the baseline of customer demand.
So the environment matters just as much as the person.
Exactly. An individual's capability is only half of the performance equation. The other half is the specific ecosystem they are operating in.
I hear this debate in sales leadership all the time. There's this prevailing assumption that a top closer is a top closer, period.
Yeah, the always be closing myth.
Right. If someone is blowing out their quota, selling a high-volume transactional product, the instinct is to just hire them, give them a more complex product with a bigger territory, and watch them hunt.
But that assumption assumes sales is just a monolithic skill,
Mm.
and it completely ignores the psychological and operational mismatch that happens when environments change.
It's like taking a plant that thrives in the desert and planting it in a rainforest.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. Just because it's a great plant doesn't mean it's going to survive the new soil. How do executives account for these invisible variables?
Well, evaluating what specialist recruiters call commercial fit is just as crucial as evaluating raw sale acumen. You have to deeply understand the exact dynamics of your specific sales environment and match those dynamics to the candidate's prior experience.
Let's ground this in a practical scenario. Walk me through what happens when there's a mismatch in commercial fit, despite the rep having, like, a stellar track record.
Okay, consider a candidate who has been wildly successful in a fast-paced, highly transactional market.
Okay, like a software as a service product for small businesses.
Sure. Their typical sales cycle is under 2 weeks. They are accustomed to a one-call or two-call close. Furthermore, the product they sell has massive brand recognition and a clear, immediate ROI.
So it essentially sells itself on price and feature set.
Exactly. The rep is a superstar in that specific ecosystem because they are excellent at high-velocity pipeline management and, capitalizing on immediate buyer intent.
They are completely optimized for speed and volume.
Now, hire that exact same top performer into an enterprise software company. The sales cycle is suddenly 18 months long.
Oh, wow. Yeah, totally different world.
The product is highly conceptual. It requires extensive technical demonstrations, proof of concept deployments, and buy-in from a massive procurement committee involving the CFO, the CTO, and legal.
A completely different buyer journey.
And the internal support structure requires this rep to quarterback a cross-functional team of sales engineers and implementation specialists over the course of a whole year.
The psychology of the rep would just completely break down in that environment.
It shatters.
Because they are used to the rapid dopamine hit of closing a deal every few days. In an 18-month cycle, they might not see a closed-won notification for a year.
Exactly. They don't have the strategic patience or the complex stakeholder mapping skills required simply because their previous environment never demanded it.
They'd just be completely overwhelmed.
Right. They possess incredible drive and work ethic, but they lack the specific commercial fit for enterprise solution selling. A true partnership with a recruitment agency means the recruiter deeply understands your specific sales cycle length, your exact level of market competition, and the maturity of your product.
Because selling an unknown product is totally different than defending market share for a big brand.
Precisely. Are you hiring an evangelist to sell an unknown product in a greenfield market, or an account manager to defend turf for an established brand? Those require fundamentally different profiles.
Yeah, you can't mix those up.
The recruiter ensures a precise environmental match, validating that the candidate has thrived in the exact kind of commercial ecosystem your company provides.
Okay, but that sets a highly specific bar for the hiring manager. You need someone with verified deal ownership mechanics who also matches the exact operational and psychological profile of your specific commercial environment.
It's a tall order.
It is. If you construct that hyper-targeted success profile, you aren't going to find many people who fit the bill. So where do executives actually find these perfect candidates?
Well, the sourcing strategy is the critical pivot point here. The standard operating procedure for most companies is to just draft a job description, post it on a major job board or LinkedIn, and passively wait to see who applies.
Post and pray.
Exactly. But the source material from Win Nathan Davis reveals a stark reality about this approach when you are trying to hire the absolute top tier of sales talent.
Let me guess. The people capable of hitting a complex enterprise quota are not spending their evenings scrolling through job boards.
You nailed it. The absolute best sales candidates are passive in the labor market.
Meaning they already have jobs.
Right. They are currently employed, they're not actively searching for new opportunities, and most importantly, they are already performing exceptionally well. In many cases, they are hitting quota and making significant commission for one of your direct competitors.
Wow. So if I am relying on an inbound recruiting strategy, just posting an ad and reviewing the resumes that come to me, I am inherently limiting my talent pool to a very specific demographic.
You are. You're primarily looking at individuals who are either unemployed, unhappy with their current compensation, or underperforming and maybe at risk of being put on a performance improvement plan.
Yikes.
I mean, there are always exceptions. A top performer might be relocating for family reasons, or their company may have undergone a sudden merger, but Systematically,
Mhm.
relying on active applicants means you are missing the true rainmakers who are just too busy closing deals to update their resumes.
So what does this all mean for a hiring manager? Should they stop posting job ads entirely? I mean, this presents a massive friction point for an executive.
It does. Ads have a place, but they limit you.
If I only want the top 1%, and by definition those people are already employed, hitting their numbers, and likely sitting on a massive, unvested commission pipeline, why would they ever take a call from a recruiter?
Well, they won't take a call from a recruiter who is just pitching a generic job vacancy. They take the call when a specialist recruiter utilizes targeted strategic headhunting techniques.
So it's about the approach.
Completely. Proactive recruiters don't wait for the talent to come to them. They actively map the market. They identify the exact organizational charts of your competitors, pinpoint the top performers within those highly related industries, and initiate a peer-to-peer commercial conversation.
The approach has to be surgical. You aren't pitching a salary bump. You have to pitch a strategic career maneuver.
Exactly.
You are presenting an opportunity to take over an untapped territory or offering them a disruptive product that gives them a competitive edge they don't currently have.
And that proactive approach expands your talent pool far beyond the constraints of active job seekers. To achieve long-term hiring success, companies must partner with recruiters who actively map the market and proactively poach top-tier talent.
You're not just filling an empty desk.
No, you are aiming to bring in top-tier talent, capable of expanding your customer relationships, displacing your competitors, and fundamentally increasing your revenue predictability.
Because you are poaching someone who has already proven they can execute those exact deliverables in your specific commercial environment.
The entire paradigm shifts from reactive gap filling to proactive growth strategy. The replacement guarantee, as we established earlier, is really just the administrative safety net.
The actual engine of commercial growth lies in that rigorous commercial assessment, the precise alignment of commercial fit, and the targeted headhunting of passive top performers.
Exactly right.
We have covered a massive amount of strategic ground today, really pulling from the sales experts' frameworks to rethink how revenue organizations bring on top talent. Let's distill this down into 3 highly actionable takeaways for the executives listening right now.
Sounds good.
First, do not let a standard replacement guarantee give you a false sense of security. It protects your initial search fee, but it does absolutely nothing to protect your market share, your brand equity, or your lost momentum. You really need to shift your scrutiny away from the guarantee and demand transparency into the agency's structured assessment process instead.
That's critical.
Second, hire strictly for commercial fit rather than just historical quota attainment. Verify that a candidate's previous environment, their typical sales cycle length, the complexity of their buyer committee, and their internal support structure matches your exact market conditions.
The desert plant in the rainforest.
Exactly. Don't make that mistake. And third, fundamentally shift your sourcing strategy to target passive, headhunted candidates rather than just active job seekers. If your hiring process relies entirely on active applicants, you are structurally ignoring the top tier of talent who are already busy driving revenue for your competitors.
Executing on those 3 points transforms talent acquisition from a basic HR function into a core pillar of your broader commercial strategy.
Absolutely. If you're an executive ready to stop gambling on conversational interviews and want to define the exact success profile needed to secure the top 1% of sales talent, take action on this material.
Highly recommended.
You can dive much deeper into these frameworks by visiting thesalesexperts.com to explore their insights, their market methodologies, and their deep dive Q&A on building a bulletproof sales team. They really have the blueprint for taking the guesswork out of your next critical revenue hire.
And, as you look at your own hiring pipeline, this raises an important question to evaluate internally. If the absolute best sales talent in your specific industry is currently employed, successfully hitting their numbers, and perfectly comfortable where they are, what is it about your company's culture, your leadership, and your specific commercial environment that would convince them to leave it all behind and join your team?